if you don't work on yourself, it's not going to work.
It's really important that you work on yourself so that you have more capacity to be present to what's really going on.
Events you don't have control on, but the way you respond to the event, the R, you have complete control on, which will determine the outcome.
I'm probably the only person that popularized it within the human potential movement. Now everybody teaches it. A professional football coach who has all of his team memorized E plus R equals O. And the idea, okay, so we fumbled the ball. That was an event. What are you going to do next? Let it go. One night of ayahuasca is worth 5 years of psychotherapy. I've never gone there and not had a major breakthrough.
Can you explain to us what is ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca is a plant medicine that's been used by the shamans in South America for thousands of years. I had major breakthroughs from that one night in the rainforest. Just like with limiting beliefs disappeared.
Everyone sees the overnight success. Nobody sees the 20 years of hard work.
We had 144 rejections.
Wow.
144. It took me 20 years to collect those stories.
Why did you not give up?
Because I knew in my heart of hearts, every time I would tell those stories on stage, people would get goosebumps, they'd come up, they'd cry, they'd hug me, they'd say, I needed that story. And I remember I collected.
Before COVID, we did a 4-city tour. The world was very different that time. Now you're coming back to India after 5 years. I think it's a completely different world. India is growing, shining. You tell me, what is your thoughts about India now?
I've been shocked by the level of technology. Even in my hotel room today, there's a little like iPad type thing, and it controls the whole room. I don't see that in any hotels in America, so that's been phenomenal to me. And I just think that the airport, everything about it just feels like it's stepped up, and a lot of the technology, we steal your bright people, technology, so I think there's a tremendous growth of that happening here. I feel like there's a quality of abundance that I didn't experience before as well. So those are the main things I'm noticing. And I can't believe how many television stations there are. It's just amazing.
Yeah, India is growing, shining. Even when I travel outside India these days, the way people look up to India, the way people talk about India, that's changed over time.
I'm going to go back. When I first learned about India, I'm 80 years old. It was kind of a third world country, in a sense it was not modernized. And now it's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's totally different, and it's coming along. And I read things like the development of like even military ships and things, that are some of the state of the art things that are happening in the world. So yeah, totally.
I'm going to first start by saying a big thank you. I'll tell you why I'm telling the thank you.
Okay.
A lot of your success principles, there's one principle which really worked for me during COVID. We do physical seminars. 2019 was our biggest year. We did 150 plus seminars. 2020, COVID happened. Right. When COVID happened, everything went to zero. But your success principle, E plus R is equal to O. I remember the same day when it happened. Because you told me that events you don't have control on, but the way you respond to the event, the R, you have complete control on, which will determine the outcome. So my mind started working like that. I saw this as an opportunity. Within 15 days, we did our first online digital masters conference, and we had 3,000 plus people, and we have never looked back. So a big thank you for your success principles, and the E plus R is equal to O. Changed my life. Can you tell me, how did you get that success principle?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you. It took me about 30 days to get it around. You did it in 15. You beat me. Interestingly enough, I was probably in my early 20s. There was a therapist that I saw. He was a Gestalt therapist, and he taught me that formula, E plus R equals O. And he said, it's your thoughts about it. It's the meaning you make of things. It's the interpretation you have. It's the, it's not the thing itself. And it just blew my mind. And I probably the only person that popularized it within the human potential movement. Now everybody teaches it, in fact, I just read about a professional football coach who has all of his team memorized E plus R equals O. And the idea, okay, so we fumbled the ball. That was an event. What are you going to do next? Let it go. And So that's been exciting to see it kind of move around the culture. But that's when I learned it. And I began to apply it to all the work I did and made a huge difference. And I would say we've now trained 4,500 people to train this work, many of them here in India, a couple of them work for you actually. And what happens is that when we do they have to pass a test at the end. And we ask them, what's the principle that most impacted your life? And 95% of people write an essay about E plus Y equals O. Yeah.
Your book Success Principles was done thousands and thousands of copies across the world. Before Success Principles, I want to talk about Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Sure.
You told me that story. How many times you got rejected, but you never gave up, and what happened? Can you share that story?
About trying to sell the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting. I just started collecting these stories and I thought this would make a good book. And so I'm writing all that up. And eventually I had breakfast with Mark Victor Hansen, my co-author, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing this book. He said, what's it about? And I said, it's all these inspirational stories that kind of speakers use a lot to get that standing ovation at the end, and just heartfelt. And he said, I want to write it with you. I said, Mark, I'm already over half done. Why would I do that? And he said, I'm a better marketer than you are. And then he said, I know at least 10 of the stories you stole from me, which wasn't true, maybe 5. But anyway, I said, okay, if you can go get 15 stories, what I don't have, we'll do it. And he did. And so now we have a book. We didn't have a title yet. Mark and I, and I'm going to get to your question in a minute, but I'm giving some background. So we didn't have a title. So Mark and I said, we're both meditators. So we're going to meditate and ask for a title and see what comes. And Mark's much more hyper than me. So he would go to bed every night going, best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega, like hoping that was like a story of subconscious. And I would just ask God, and I said, okay, I'm going to sit here for an hour. If you give me a title, I'd love it, And Wednesday, so third day, big green chalkboard emerges, not too different from the background of this, like in a school. And a hand comes out and writes chicken soup on the chalkboard. And I figured it was God's hand. And I said, well, what the heck does chicken soup have to do with this book? And the answer I got was, when you were a kid, your grandmother gave you chicken soup when you were sick. And I said, but this is not a book about sick people. And this was 1992, 3. There was a Gulf War going on. There was a big recession in America. And the voice said in my head, people's spirits are sick. They're in resignation, fear, and hopelessness. And I went, chicken soup for the spirit, chicken soup for the soul, goosebumps, And so I told my wife, she got goosebumps. I called Mark, he got goosebumps. We went to New York to sell it to publishers. 21 meetings, no one got goosebumps. So our agent gave us the book back. He said, I can't sell it. And so someone said, there's this conference called the American Booksellers Association. These are people who owned all the bookstores when there were many more bookstores. Now it's so much online with Amazon. But anyway, big convention center. And we walked around over and over and over saying all the publishers have booths to promote their new books to the booksellers, to the bookstores. And there was always editors there, and you could kind of sell your book to them while you were there. So we're going around with a backpack full of these manuscripts of like maybe half the stories. Not interested, not interested, not interested, not interested. And then we sent it out on our own to some people. We had 144 rejections. Wow. 144. It was over almost a period of a year, 144. And I remember I collected...
I'm going to interrupt you. Why did you not give up?
Because I knew in my heart of hearts, every time I would tell those stories on stage, people would get goosebumps. They'd come up, they'd cry, they'd hug me. They'd say, I needed that story. Is that story available in a book anywhere? My daughter needs to read it. My staff needs to hear it, whatever. And so I knew that people wanted that book, but it didn't. The truth in the publishing industry at that time is short story collections didn't sell, but there were short stories that were fictional. These were nonfiction. These were real. And so they didn't compare apples to oranges, so they didn't know. And so anyway, I just knew I would have self-published if I had to. I didn't want to because I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to get more stories and write and do that. But finally, this little publisher down in Florida said, yes, we'll do it. Oh, no, that's not true. So what happened was a guy said to me, he said, next time you get a no, ask them what would have to happen for you to say yes. And I thought, that's a great question. And if you're watching this, which you are, I would tell you, that's a great question. and you get a no, ask them what would have to happen for you to say yes. So I said to this one publisher down in Florida, what would have to happen for you to say yes? He said, I'd need to know I could sell 20,000 copies. That would be break even for me and, little money for you. And otherwise we'd lose money, editing it and printing it and warehousing it and all that. So for about 3 months, Mark and I, every time we gave a talk, sometimes to 50 people, sometimes to 2,000 people, we put a sheet of paper on every chair. I can remember spending half hour doing it. And it said, I promise to buy X number of copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul when it comes out. And it had a picture of the mocked up cover we made, which didn't end up being the real cover. And then their address. This was before even anyone was using email. So we didn't have email address, which is an address, I think maybe a phone number. And so what happened was we went down to him. We took these banker's boxes full of these 20,000 yeses, plumped them on his desk and said, okay. And he said, all right. And he said, can I trust all this? I said, look, if you print 20,000 copies and they don't get sold, we'll buy them. You can't lose. And he went, okay. So that was, he said his goal was 20,000. He said, what's your goal to us? And I said, we want to sell 135,000 by Christmas, because this was the book came out in July or something, and want to sell 1.5 million in a year and a half. He laughed at us. He said, you guys are crazy. I said, no, we're entrepreneurs. We're visionaries. We sold 135,000 by Christmas. We sold 1.3 million in a year and a half. He bought a jet.
Wow. So you did the hard work, got 20,000 names, convinced him to publish the book, and he bought a jet.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I had collected all of the rejection letters, and I had them in a file. And when we hit the New York Times bestseller list, #1, I was going to just staple the bestseller list to the rejection letters and send them back to the people.
You should have.
I couldn't find the letters. I think God was protecting me from being an idiot.
Yeah. Just for the record, how many copies has the book sold till now?
If you consider all the translations, about 600 million.
I truly believe you become an overnight success after 20 years of hard work.
Yeah.
Everyone sees the overnight success. Nobody sees the 20 years of hard work. Especially in India, what has happened is people really want to do it fast. They want to reach it very fast.
Yes.
And I don't think there's no shortcut for success. I don't believe in a shortcut for success.
Unless you're a K-pop girl in Korea, maybe.
Can you just share for the audience watching this? If you're going for a shortcut, it's not going to happen, because you just told me a story, right?
Yeah.
144 publishers. No.
Right. No. It took us 1.5 years to sell that book. It took us another 18 months to hit a bestseller list. So the book came out and did well, but it was more like 14 months. Then we hit the Washington Post bestseller list, then the New York Times, climbed up over weeks, got to #1, stayed there for 3 years in the #1 position. But it took me 20 years to collect those stories.
Exactly.
In other words, I put them in a book in 1.5 years, but it took me 20 years to get that story, have that experience, hear that talk, cut that out of a magazine, whatever. And but it was like 20 years of stories that I collected. And when I wrote the Success Principles book, there's 64 principles in that book. It took me again, 20, 30 years to collect all those principles, apply them in my life, have them work. But this is years and years and years of practicing and getting better. Bruce Springsteen, anyone like that, you never heard of them. And then all of a sudden, they must have just, no, not at all. The actors, some like Morgan Freeman had been acting for years, and all of a sudden he's driving Miss Daisy, and now he plays God in the movies, But it was years of doing these crappy roles, and then all of a sudden he breaks through. And I quoted to you before we came on the air, we were in your conference room, that Bill Gates has this quote, which I love. He says, most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. So for me, I started my company. We didn't make a lot of money the first year. I was making $140,000. That was it. And now, multiple millions. But the point being, it happens slowly over time. You get better. You learn things. You build your network of people. You, build your mailing list, your social media outreach, and so forth and so on. And it takes time. And if you're willing to do it and stay consistent. I was just reading a quote from Steve Jobs, who started Apple. He said, I'm convinced that the number one attribute of success is persistence. Not giving up, just get up one more time. And I always say, our kids should teach us that. They fall down, they get up, they fall down, they get up, they fall down, they get up. And I always tell parents, you wouldn't just say, okay, you got 3 months to learn to walk. If you don't, I'm not going to bother with you anymore. You just keep doing it until they learn to walk. And we can learn from that. We're going to fall down. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have obstacles show up and things like, the fires it just happened in LA and 7,000 homes burned down, that's a lot of recovery. Those people, they're going to have to work hard to bring all that back. And that's going to happen all through life. There's obstacles, there's tsunamis, there's earthquakes, there's fires, there's presidents that get elected you're not really happy about. It's going to happen. And it's just a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to keep going, going to keep going, going to keep going. And then eventually you get to where you want to go.
You're talking about challenges and something we just spoke a little while before. Everything happens for you, not against you.
Right.
Something you said. Can you just explain that?
Yeah. I used to think when things, growing up where I did with my parents, the way they were, it was like if something bad happened, it was like, well, God doesn't love us, we must have done something really evil, and if you're Indian, you go in a past lifetime, you're paying karma for it. And I think for me, one of the great lessons and breakthroughs in my consciousness is that everything that happens is for a good reason. Everything happens for you. And I was telling you the example of my divorce, where I had this is hard to believe, but we had about $8 million in stocks and bonds and cash and stuff like that. And then there was my company, and we had the same forensic lawyers and accountants, forensic accountants that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman had when they broke up.
Oh boy.
That's how crazy it was, right? And they valued my company at $8 million and said, you get to keep your company and your wife gets everything else. Well, I keep my job, right? And so I was wearing shirts like this for like 3 days in a row. I couldn't afford to send them out to the cleaners. And I felt like, oh, this is not fair. This is not okay. And then about, I don't know, when was it? We sold Chicken Soup for the Soul as a company to another company. It's about 10 years ago now, maybe. And we got like over $60 million for the sale. And I would have had to give my wife half of that because I said, I'll give you half of everything I earn for the rest of my life, but let me keep $4 million. And she said, no. I said, okay. So I would have had to give her a whole lot more. So in the long run, it worked out to my advantage by about $8 million. So you don't see it at first. And I also believe this, when you have obstacles, it's requiring you to expand your capacity, to learn how to reach out and ask for help, to build a team, to dig deeper and bring forward your grit and your guts and your stamina and your perseverance and develop qualities, perhaps humility that you didn't have before. And we all need to develop those, and we need to know that we can have a team that we can reach out to and build a network of friends and so forth. And often people don't do that at first. So that it requires us to grow. And we don't grow when things are easy. Growth occurs when there's challenges. Growth occurs. And I remember reading about the Japanese samurai swords. They have to stress them. And that's why they're so sharp and why they don't break when you use them, because they've been stressed a lot. And if you don't stress us, we don't grow.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And I believe every challenge is an opportunity for you to evolve and grow.
Absolutely.
As simple as that.
Absolutely.
Because the more the challenge hits you, you're going to go to the next level.
Yeah.
To a point where today, wait for a challenge to come.
Yes.
If nothing comes, it gets boring. Come on, I want something new to hit me now.
Yeah.
That's how it is. One more thing you told me in the airport a few days before. When you're building something, if you're building for money or for any other reason, if you build it for service, it works really well. Can you share what?
Right. Yeah, there are a number of facets on that little diamond, but one of them is that, so you can have the things you want, but come from an idea of service. When we did the Chicken Soup books, our motto, our tagline was transforming the world one story at a time. And the idea was that we were there because we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to serve. And as a result of that, we were very successful. So many people are coming because they want something. You always know when someone's trying to get something from you. I use this metaphor. If you've ever go to a person's house and they have a dog and you walk in, you sit down, the dog starts humping your leg. That's how a lot of salesmen are. It's like they want something. Oh, back off. But if they're trying to help you solve a problem, that's really what we're all about. Think about Mother Teresa. We all know her. Gandhi, we all know him, right? We can go around the world. Mandela. And they were coming from service. It wasn't coming from greed or power, from service.
I want to jump ship and go to the secret law of attraction. Can you
Yes.
tell me how that happened?
Well, the secret happened. Well, I started studying the law of attraction. My mentor, W. Clement Stone, I was very lucky as a young man to work with this guy. He was worth $600 million. And he was, they called it back then the power of positive thinking, things like that. And he had studied, he became a friend with Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you know this, but originally the title was going to be Use Your Bean to Get the Green.
Really? Wow.
What happens was he taught me to believe that anything was possible, visualize it, intend it, expect it to happen, and to have an affirmation for it. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm now X, Y, and Z. So I learned that in my 20s and started applying it. He said, I want you to set a goal that's so big that if you achieve it, it'll blow your mind. And I said, okay. I was making $8,000 a year at the time. So I set a goal to make $100,000 a year, which was 12 times more than what I was doing. And I didn't know how it was going to do that. But I said, okay, I'm going to do what you told me. I did the affirmation every day. I visualized it. I put I made $100,000 bill about this big and put it on the ceiling of my bedroom. So I wake up in the morning, first thing I'd see, $100,000 bill. I close my eyes and say, my affirmation back then was, God is my infinite supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly and easily under the grace of God as I earn, spend, and invest $100,000 a year. I can still say that after 40 years ago or something. Anyway, so what happens is I visualized that. I did the affirmation. I visualized what would my life look like if I had the $100,000 lifestyle and so forth. And about 30 days into it, I'm in the shower and I have this idea about how I could actually do that. I had this book, 100 Ways to Enhance Self-Concept in the Classroom. I made a quarter, 25 cents every time it got sold. Oh, if I sold 400,000 books, I could do that. And so it was the first $100,000 idea I ever had. And then little by little, I won't go into all the details, but other opportunities started to emerge. I raised my speaking fee, so forth. And I didn't make 100,000. I made $92,325, but who's complaining, right? It was a big jump. And then my wife said, do you think we can do it? $1 million? I said, I don't know. Let's do it. We made $1 million bill. We did the same thing. And as I showed in my talk yesterday, check for $1,325,000, something like that. And that was sent to me by my publisher. And then that year I made $6 million. And so I was a believer and I was practicing it. And then people started talking about the law of attraction, which made sense to me because I was already doing what they were talking about. And then Rhonda Byrne, who was a television producer in Australia, she was depressed. And her daughter gave her some books like The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And she read them and she thought, this should be taught in school. Why isn't anyone teaching this stuff? I want to get it out there. I'm going to make a movie. So she decided to make this movie called The Secret. She did a very dramatic beginning where it was like this secret that only the rich knew, the Illuminati and so forth. And I think some people actually did know that, but I don't think it was quite that dramatic. But anyway, starts out, and then she interviewed all these people, myself included. And what's fascinating about it is there's a woman named Janet Atwood who comes to India quite often, actually studies with a lot of the gurus over here and the saints. And she knew Rhonda, and she said, so I started this thing called the Transformational Leadership Council. It's about 140 members of people who do this work, like John Gray and Men Are From Mars and people like that, like me. And I started that in my living room, and now we meet twice a year. We just had our 15th anniversary of 2 meetings a year. And Rhonda wanted to come to this meeting and interview, I think 12 of the people she wanted to interview were going to be at this meeting. And I said, no, that's going to upset all the people that don't get interviewed. It's going to create all this thing. So I always meditate for a few minutes before I go to bed. So I'm sitting there meditating, and this voice says, "Tell Rhonda yes." So I called Jim. I said, "Tell her yes," and she came. And you've seen the movie. All those people. We were in a room smaller than this little room we're in, and it was at somebody's office at this hotel where we were having the meeting, and they just set up a green screen, so all these things you see happening behind are all like put in there, digitally. And I got interviewed, and a lot of other people, and then they showed the movie. Next year, she brought the movie to show us before, and we all thought, another one of those movies. We were blown away. It was incredible. And then that first year, I think there was like 13 million copies of that movie were seen. And then it was the #1 DVD in China for years. They showed that movie on television in Iran. How they got past the Ayatollah Khomeini, I'll never know. I actually got invited to speak in Iran to the 800 people in Tehran as a result of that. So it definitely had a huge impact on my career,
Yeah, one of my favorite teachers, a good friend, Dr. John D. Martini, was in that movie too.
I love John.
Yeah, one of my very favorite teachers.
Yeah.
Now, can you just dissect law of attraction for our viewers? Just step by step, how do you do law of attraction?
Well, the law of attraction basically says what you desire, what you feel strongly about, what you believe in, and you think about it, you talk about it, you really every part of you has to like be aligned with it, your energy. And this is the part that most people misunderstand. Most people think if you just intend it and visualize it and affirm it, it's going to happen. And I think why a lot of people think they're doing the law of attraction and it's not working is they miss the feeling part of it. You have to create a vibrational match for that which you want to attract. So if I want abundance in my life, I have to be abundance. I have to act in abundance. I have to trust there's abundance. W. Clement Stone told me when I was I think I was 21 when I went to work with him for a while. He said, always carry a $100 bill in your wallet. I have one in my today. I have one in my wallet. He said, no matter what's going on, you can never say you can't afford something because you always have $100 in your pocket, And every time you go in there, you go, oh, I'm rich. I got $100. Back then, that was a lot of money. Today, not so much. But the point being that you want to be a match for that. So if I want people in my life to be loving to me, I need to be loving. If I want to have peace, I need to be projecting peace. So basically, you have to, when I teach people, it's like you have to be like an actor. Like, you want to know, someone says, I want to own a Mercedes. I said, great, go down to the Mercedes dealer, test drive a Mercedes, notice what it feels like. Every time you close your eyes and you visualize and intend that, make sure that you recreate that feeling. What would you feel in your chest? How would your breathing be? What expression would be on your face, etc. So that they're vibrating at that level. And it's so important. And that's the piece most people miss, that they don't realize how important it is to get in this state. And what's cool about it, I do this exercise sometimes in trainings where I'll say, okay, I want everyone in the room to imagine you're a multimillionaire. And if you're a millionaire already, imagine you're multi-millionaire. Now stand up. You're going to mill around for 10 minutes and interact with everyone as if you were a millionaire. They stand up, they go around, they're talking about their hotels that they bought, their jets that they have, their house on the beach, whatever. And then at the end of 10 minutes, I stop and say, how many of you feel amazing right now? Great. How many of you feel happy? How many feel abundant? How many feel joy? Right. And what happened? How many of you are really millionaires? Not really. But you acted like a millionaire, right? And it changed how you felt. So you have to act as if you're already there. It's like you have to become it before you actually manifest it, if you will. And so for me, but in the movie The Secret, we say ask, believe, receive. So you ask for it by just believing it's possible, asking for it. I'd like a window seat. I'd like to upgrade to first class. I want a suite upgrade in the hotel, whatever. And then you believe it's possible. And then you have to create the vibrational match. That's the receiving part, And a lot of people, I love the way one of my friends who teaches this says, it's as if there's a conveyor belt coming into your mailbox. All these things you've ever wanted are all lined up. But because you're not vibrating at that level, your mailbox is closed. So you basically have to start being there. We manifest who we are. That's the key that most people miss.
So it's the law of attraction. There's a law of vibration, which has to be a match
Yes,
for you to get it.
right.
Plus, I also believe there's a law of action.
Yes, yes. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that law of attraction will bring you it won't always give you the car, but it will give you the opportunity to do the thing that would earn the money to buy the car. So you have to pay attention to the opportunities, pay attention to the, what do we call them, inspired actions. So like for me, when I got that idea in the shower that I needed to sell 400,000 books, my next step was, well, how could I do that? I started taking out ads in school newspapers for teachers to buy the book. I started to do radio interviews I'd never done before. I wrote an article for Reader's Digest magazine about that, it's like you just you act as if it's going to happen. What were the things you need to do? So the law of, I said yesterday, John Assaraf, who's in The Secret, calls it the law of Goya. Goya, the law of get off your ass. And I'll demonstrate this in my seminars. I'll hold up $100. I didn't do it yesterday because I ran out of time, but I'll hold up like $100. I'll say, who wants this? And everybody raises their hand, they wave. And eventually somebody gets out of the audience and walks up and gets it. And I'll say, what did he do that no one else did? They got off their ass, they took action, and they got it. So you have to take action. Action is required. And what's really cool is the law of attraction. What are the last 6 letters in the word attraction?
Action.
Action.
Yes.
There's a clue there.
Yeah.
There's a clue. And in Latin, satisfaction, we all want satisfaction. Oh, I can't get no satisfaction, right? Satis means enough. And the word facere, F-A-C-E-R-E, means to make. It's the word for factory. We make.
Yep.
It manufacture. Manu means hand, like manuscript. So enough making produces satisfaction. You've got to get into action to do that. There's secrets in the language everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of gratitude. You always say for anything to happen, you should have gratitude.
Yes.
Can you talk about it? Why gratitude is very, very important?
Well, gratitude goes back to what we were just saying. If I am in a state of gratitude, it's as if I'm grateful for what I have. So I'm in a state of being grateful for having, as opposed to being upset and feeling in lack because I don't have. Most people walk around focused on what they don't have and feeling upset about it, and it's like, I don't have this, I don't have that, they got that, I don't have that, whatever. As opposed to when I focus on what I already have, then I'm in a state of happiness, gratitude, and joy, which then means I'm now that vibrational match for the things that give me happiness, gratitude, and joy. So I believe everyone should have a gratitude practice. In The Secret, do you remember there was this thing called a gratitude rock? I know a bunch of us used to carry those around in our pocket for a while. And then I keep a gratitude journal. My wife and I have just started doing something really cool. So if you're out there and you're in a relationship, you live with somebody, I just learned this a couple of weeks ago. We've been doing it for 2 weeks, and my wife said, I think it's changing our relationship. It's called an appreciation journal for your spouse. So every morning, for 1 minute, I write something I'm grateful for that she might have done the night before. And I can't just be grateful for the action. I have to also be grateful for the quality underneath it. So I would say, I'm really grateful for the fact that you brought food out to my office for dinner. And it shows how much you care about my work right now. And I appreciate that. I love you. And then she might write, I'm so grateful that you're going to India and you're doing this workshop because you're bringing home a lot of money as a result of it. And I get to live this amazing lifestyle because you work really hard. And as much as I miss you, I know you're really committed to making a difference in the world and also to taking care of your family. And then I read that, right? And then the next day, and what they recommended was keep it on your toilet seat if you have a private bathroom. And so it's always there. You're always going to have to write in it. We have actually a little bookshelf in front of our toilet, so we leave it there. But we've been doing that for 14 days now. And she said to me just a day ago on the phone, I'm always looking for things to appreciate about you now. I used to always be upset about all the things I was judging about you. So again, it just puts you in that state of appreciation. And there's a study that's done at the Heart Math Institute in Boulder Creek, California. Rob Proctor is one of the great teachers of this work, and Wallace Wattles, who wrote the Science of Getting Rich. They always said success starts with gratitude for what you already have. You start with the gratitude. I think John DeMartini would say that as well, that you have to be grateful. And then your intention has a whole different quality than if you're not. So literally, when I do workshops now, before we set goals, I do gratitude first. And then you're in that state. So now your intention is much more powerful. And when we go into your daily practice, I teach something called the Hour of Power, which is 20 minutes of meditation and visualization and gratitude, 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of reading. What happens is before you do your affirmation and your visualization, you do gratitude first. And one thing I've been teaching, a lot of people are teaching now too, is that it's easy when you first learn this to go, oh, I'm grateful for my dog, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for a refrigerator, we have, whatever. And it's like, that doesn't work. You have to really feel it. And what we've been telling people lately is every day there has to be 3 new things you're grateful for. Because every day if you just go in my house, my refrigerator, and my car, it's like, it's not really, you're not really there.
So just to break it down, gratitude, we start with gratitude. We have a clear intention, affirmation, visualization. Then you're also saying there should be a vibrational match, follow it up with action.
Yeah.
These are the steps.
Yeah, here's the action part. When you do that, you're going to start getting inspirations to act. I call them inspired ideas. So I divide action into 2 kinds of actions, what I call obvious actions. You want to be a doctor, you got to go to medical school. You got to study physiology, anatomy, biology, biochemistry, whatever. But there's inspired actions. And the example I use like to match the medical one would be all of a sudden you're there and you're home visiting on Easter vacation, something like that in America. And you find out that Mrs. Jones' husband died. You used to babysit for her. So you said, I'm going to take her some cookies. So you go down with the cookies, and you're wanting to go to medical school, and that's your goal. That's your intention. And you knock on a door, and she says, oh, Jackie, use the metaphor for a woman here. Thank you. I bought you some cookies. I heard you. Oh, come on in. And you go in the living room, there's a guy sitting there. So I want to introduce you to my nephew, John. He's the head of admissions for the medical school at Stanford University. All of a sudden, if you start following these things that don't even make any sense, like I'd go to that Starbucks today instead of that Starbucks. I don't know why, but I think I should call CERN. Why would I call CERN? I haven't talked to him in a month. But I do, and all of a sudden you turn me on to something I need to know that helps me do the thing I want to do. Or I get this idea, maybe I should go back to school, take a class, whatever. So obvious actions, yeah, you got to go to medical school. You got to do the work. But there's also inspired actions.
So your action is actually like that. It shows up, then you follow it,
Yeah.
then things fall in place.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and that's when it shows up,
Okay. Work-life balance. Today has been a very hot topic in India. People talk about it. What is your take on work-life balance?
Well, one of my friends made a very interesting distinction. He says there is no such thing as balance. There's only balancing.
Wow.
It's a verb.
Yep.
Because, you can't stand on a high wire and just be still. You're always doing this, right?
Yeah.
When you drive your car, you're always correcting, And so, and I think what happens, you go a little too far one way and all of a sudden you're stressed out and you take a few days off and you get a massage, you go to the spa, you spend time with your kids, whatever. But eventually you start to say, okay, what I teach people is your life. I'm a big believer in schedules and also spontaneity. So I think the things you schedule happen. And most people tend to make their life work from to-do lists. And we always do the easiest thing first, which is a problem because then the most important things, which are hard, don't ever happen. So if you want more balance in your life, you have to schedule it. Everything in your business life helps your family. Everything in your family life helps your business. They're one and the same. Quit thinking they're different. And I think that's really important. That, and obviously you can go work yourself into a grave and never spend time with your family and, don't exercise and don't sleep, you don't meditate. That's not good. But I think everyone has a different level of balance. The way I see it is that you have to exhale and you have to inhale. So we're exhaling when we're working, we're inhaling when we're nurturing ourselves and our family. And everyone has a different rhythm. Some people can go 5 days really hard and take the whole weekend off. Some people work hard until 6 o'clock and then they take the evening off. Some people will go into a cabin for a month and write. and then they don't touch a pen for another 6 months, and they're spending. So it's different for everybody. Like in our country, the firemen, they're on like for 4 days, they don't sleep much, but then they get 3 days off
Yep.
and they don't do much. So it's you have to find what works for you, and often you have to go too far to find out how too far is. I'm not going to do that again, or I need, so like right now is, I'm basically starting to slow down, scale down my business, my time working, and spend more time with my family, so forth. But there was a time when I worked too much, and then I got it, and I started saying, okay, I'm going to take more time off. And now, even before I decided what come back, I always took the entire month of August off, 2 weeks of Christmas, and always 4 long weekends with my wife somewhere, like 4-day weekends. We go somewhere,
Yeah. My take on it is there's nothing called work-life balance, as you rightly said. It's a balancing act.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to work a lot.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to focus more on family.
Yeah.
Rather than going for balance, why can't we go for harmony?
I like that harmony. Yeah. And, think about a plane. A plane goes on the runway, it's never going to get off the ground. It takes a lot of energy.
Yep.
And then you get up to 35,000 feet, and then you're kind of coasting. So when you start a business, you're an entrepreneur, there's not a lot of free time. You really have to do work hard. But as one of my friends says, this is true also for multi-level marketing companies, if you work really hard, like most people won't, for a couple of years, you can live your life really amazingly, like most people never will. So look at you. You're a perfect example. You've built an amazing organization, and as you get more and more into this, you have more and more support. You have more time to to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Thanks to teachers like you and personal growth. Let's talk a little about personal growth, because my belief is no matter what you do, you're a working professional, you're a business owner. If you don't work on yourself, it's not going to work.
Right.
So can you talk why personal growth is very, very important?
Well, one of the things I always say is the best thing you could do as a CEO or a C-suite person is work on yourself, because anything that's not integrated in you is going to show up magnified as a problem in your company or in your organization. And so working on yourself is going to help you develop more compassion. It's going to help you be more humane. It's going to help you learn to listen better, because you have to do that, to be more flexible, to be more creative, to take more risks. You stop protecting yourself so much. I think I had an awareness one day that most businesses are run on fear. So if you take a big business, the CEO is afraid of the board of directors. The board of directors is afraid of the stock market. It's going to keep those stocks all happening. And then the C-suite people are afraid of the CEO. The managers are afraid of them. The workers are afraid of their managers. It's crazy. And so it's really important that you work on yourself so that you have more capacity to be present to what's really going on. Because when you don't do that, it's your biases, your limiting beliefs that everything is filtered through, and it doesn't work very well, So I know for me, I've been a CEO of my own company and a couple of organizations. The more I grow, the more my staff likes me, the more they like working there, the more creative we are, the more I listen to their ideas and not think I'm in charge of everything. Everything works better. So I think that, and I would say the same thing is true for a parent. You want to be, the best thing you can do for your kids is work on yourself. And I'd say the best thing you can do for your marriage is to work on yourself. So any relationship, and being a boss and running a company is the same thing.
Yeah. Because if you're open to learning, you can actually accomplish anything you want in life. You can have a better health, better relationship. You just need to be open to learning.
Yeah.
For which you should take feedback and understand what works for you, what doesn't work for you. If you need a coach, go for a coach. Take help outside.
Right.
Because that's the only way to grow.
Let me suggest a tool for that too.
Yeah.
One of the things I teach about feedback is a question I learned. I don't even remember who I learned it from, but it's one of the most important questions I ever learned. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of our experience? I could say on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of me as someone you hire? On a scale of 1 to 10, I ask my wife every Sunday, how would you rate our marriage? Me as a husband, me as a dad, me as a boss. We do that with my company. do it with clients? How would you relate, this seminar we just did? And the real trick is the follow-up question. Anything less than a 10 gets, what would it take to make it a 10? And that's where the gold is. Most companies won't even ask their clients that because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. Most husbands will never ask their wife that because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. But as I tell people, if I don't ask my wife that and she's upset, I'm the only one who doesn't know. She's told her mother, her sister, the girls in the salon, whatever. It's like, and I'm the only one who can fix it. And what's really sad is that people will go to work and complain about their wife. Then they'll come back home and complain about the people at work.
Yeah.
Neither of whom can do anything about the other. And it's this, when we realize that feedback is self-correcting system, it's like if you're, I don't know what you have in India, but we have these little dots on the side of the road. So if your car starts to go off, you hear boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It says, oh, get back over here. And we need that in our life, and many of us, because I've done this with a lot of people in corporations, they have no idea how they're seen by their peers, their customers, their employees. They don't know. And so if you can create a safe environment and get people to listen and do it in a way where it's not like the reason I hate you or that kind of thing, it's magical what happens for people when they take in that information and maybe oh wow, everyone thinks I don't listen enough. Everyone thinks I'm too dictatorial.
A study shows that on an average, a human being gets 75,000 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And for most humans, 90% of the thoughts they have today is the same thought they had yesterday, the day before. If you're going to think the same way, your life is not going to change. So your thoughts leads you to the way you feel. The way you feel leads you to the way you take action. And your action gives you a result. So all of us know that for you to change your results, you have to change your thoughts. Now the question is, where do thoughts come from? Thoughts come from the way what you believe in. So let's talk a little about beliefs, Jack. Because I believe that beliefs are basically two things. Things which work for you, some beliefs which don't work for you, which is called limiting beliefs in your dictionary. Can you share with us, what are those limiting beliefs? What can we do to overcome them?
Well, the thing I think you first have to realize is that most of the limiting beliefs that are stopping you, you're not even aware of. Like there are things that happened when you were a child. Normally, these limiting beliefs that really block us the most happen between the age of like 3 and 8 years old. And many of them, you don't even know that you've got them. I'll give you an example. A woman I was working with recently, she was about 3 years old. Her mother was vacuuming the living room carpet. And the little girl was trying to get her mom's attention, and she couldn't get her attention. And she decided in that moment, I'm not worthy of my mother's attention. So I'm unlovable. 3 years old. And here she was now in her 40s, still acting as if that were true, but not even being aware that that was running her in a lot of her behavior and her attitude and so forth and so on. So you see this happening over and over and over again. I know for me, I had a belief I didn't realize I had until recently, which was I need to be perfect. And it's hard to be perfect. We all strive for excellence now because we know better. But the reality was I had an experience with my dad who was violent when he was drinking, and he drunk, and I did something he didn't like it, think I didn't do it well, and just it wasn't perfect for him. Then my life was threatened. He used to take out he was in the Air Force at one time. He used to take out his .45 pistol and threaten me. When you're 6 years old, that's pretty intense. This is a guy supposed to be protecting you, So I decided I wasn't safe. And so there are a number of things you can do. Well, first of all, one of the things I do with people is to look at where do you feel stuck? Start with that. What is something you want to accomplish you can't do? Something you want to, maybe you can create a relationship, but you can never maintain one. Maybe you can never make money, or you always get close and then it all falls apart. You're always chronically ill, whatever it is that is difficult. And then I ask them to close their eyes and to think about how they feel about that. What's their feeling when they think I can't do that? And then to focus on their body and scan their body from head to toe. Notice where they feel the greatest pain or tension or tightness or numbness. And then to intensify that, ask them a bunch of questions. How wide is it? How thick is it? Is it dry? Is it wet? Is it solid? Is it not? Whatever. And then inside of that, there's a feeling, like, an emotion, sadness, fear, anger, whatever. Now ride that back to the earliest time you can remember feeling that same sensation and fear, or same sensation and feeling. And invariably they go back usually between 3 and 8 years old, sometimes 15 years old. It really depends. And then where are you? What's happening? And they'll tell me the event. Remember we talked about E plus R equals O. They'll talk about event. And then what did they decide in that moment? I decided it's not safe to ask for what I want. I decided it's not safe to make noise. I decided that people aren't safe, that men aren't safe, that whatever. And if you decided because your dad wasn't safe and your grandfather wasn't safe and the boy next door tried to beat you up and so forth, you're going to have a hard time creating a relationship with a man in your life that's, so I would say, one of the most important things you could do and everybody should do is like learn how to work with your beliefs, because we're all entangled. We don't even realize it.
So it's a subconscious programming. You have no idea it is happening. And it's a conditioning which happens mostly from 3 to 8 years from either people whom you love, your mom, dad, or somebody from authority said something to you.
Yeah.
Or you heard something, saw an event, and a story you told to yourself about
Right.
the event. And that's the program which is running you.
Or it's cultural. I mean, look at some of the Arabic countries that have beliefs about women, So if you grow up as a woman or a man in those cultures, you're going to have that belief. It wasn't even a traumatic event. It's just called, that's the culture you grew up in. So there's that going on as well.
So all of us have those beliefs which are holding us because of conditioning or culture.
Right.
And any area we are stuck, we're supposed to look back and understand why and go to the pattern, whichever methodology works for us,
Right.
clear it up so that we can move on.
Absolutely. One of my friends says that personal growth is simply called keep moving in the direction you want to go until you find you're blocked.
Wow.
And then look, what's the limiting belief that's blocking me? Handle that, and then keep moving until you get another block. And you keep running into blocks. I mean, I'm 80 years old. I still run into things that I could just recently with the whole thing about perfection, and sometimes your limiting beliefs actually serve you. Like, it's hard to give up perfectionism because it worked really well. My books are really well written and, my seminars are well designed and so forth. But there's a huge cost. You're always anxious that it's not good enough, You're always going to get found out. My dad's going to show up and I'm in trouble, But that's not true anymore now that I've handled it. Yeah.
Jack, one more thing I want to ask you, because one of the things I believe in Greater Than podcast, which I really want to talk about, is none of us have perfect lives. All of us have challenges. We also have bad days. I want to ask you this question. What is your biggest challenge? And how did you work through it? What was the mindset? What did you do to come out of it?
A biggest challenge I had in the past?
Yep.
Oh, wow. I think when I got divorced, that was a big challenge. There was a lot of stuff about it I didn't like in terms of, a lot of my wealth disappeared with my ex-wife. And I had to work really, really hard. Didn't feel fair. And so that was a difficult time for me. I think when the pandemic hit, that was a huge challenge for our company and for me personally. I literally did not leave my house for 2 years. My wife did everything. I mean, I have a 3-acre estate.
Yeah.
So when I say house, it's not bad, but, everything became Zoom, and I put on probably 20 pounds, just sitting there and working all day long, coaching people and doing whatever. That was and I had 12 staff people, still do. And the challenge was, how do we keep everyone working? And so I met with them and I said, we're all going to take a 20% pay cut, including me, and then if we make more money, we'll bring it back up. I got everyone involved in a multi-level marketing company, so we are all making several thousand a month extra from that. But for me, whenever there's a challenge, my first question is, what's the solution? I'm always be solution oriented. I don't blame anybody, God, the universe, the president, the economy, whatever. That's the biggest thing most people do. And then I tend to reach out to people who I think have handled that challenge, who's succeeding. I always tell people, if you don't know what to do, find someone who's already done it and ask them how they did it. It's not that complicated, I think another challenge I had, this was interesting. I was working, I used to have a center where people would come for personal growth in Massachusetts. I decided I wanted to move to California. And so I did. And I was nobody in California. I was a big fish in Michigan, in Massachusetts. To get up there, and everyone famous is like lives in California, does this work. And so it was very hard to reestablish my thing. And then I eventually got a job with this company. And then I found out about 3 years into it that this company was being run by a fake guru, to say the least. I mean, he was not who he said he was. He was doing all kinds of bad things. I won't go into detail. And I couldn't be there anymore. I quit. I now had no job, no income, nothing, and I had to literally start a company the next day. And I remember going around California and going into like UCLA, into the dorms, and stapling to bulletin boards announcements for the seminar I was doing. They didn't have staff, didn't have anything, and literally rebuilt a training company from nothing. And again, it was like, okay, I know what it looks like when it's there. Don't have it yet. I designed a letterhead. I used to go to the post office. I had an IBM Selectric typewriter before computers. And I would go on radio shows. I would talk to people in stores. I would hang up posters and, and it took off. But it's like, for me, the challenges have been opportunities to grow, like we talked about earlier. But the main thing for me is to know there's a solution. If you know there's a solution, then you're not in fear. You just haven't found the solution yet.
Yeah. No. Yep. As you rightly said, one of the things I believe in is you take 100% responsibility for whatever happens to you.
Yes.
And 3 things which you never do. Do not justify. Do not give excuses. Do not put blame on anybody else. And if you take 100% responsibility, everything that happens to you is for you.
Yes.
And it's going to help you evolve and grow.
Yes.
And you spoke about some fake guru. I don't need the name. Because you said that, I think we should have a discussion on this. Today, coaching is growing very much in India. I truly believe the next 15, 25 years, this industry is going to grow. But for every one good coach, I know for sure that 10 coaches who are just selling dreams and aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And we know they're just surface. What would you suggest for these people? Because I believe we are an industry where true bliss is when you are an instrument in someone else's transformation.
Yes.
It's God's work. It's sacred work. But some people just do it for the money.
Well, some people just do it for the money because it is a growing business area, if you will. Some people read one book or take one seminar. They go to one Tony Robbins seminar, and now I'm a trainer,
Yeah.
And nothing against Tony. He's a great trainer. But I'm saying people will go someplace and so I could do that. And they don't understand so much of what you need to know. I've trained about 5,000 people to do my work in the world, but it's like, it was like weeks and weeks and weeks of online training and then live training and then certification process. And you have to show me a video of what you did and all that. So we know what they're doing and we certify them. But it's like so many people will just decide they are one. They're self-declared,
Yep.
and they're not well trained and they don't understand the depth of the work. I think that what you do here and the people that you work with are all amazing. I know many of them personally. A couple of them have trained with me as well. And I think that you have to, I used to say this about psychotherapists. I actually started training psychotherapists 30 years ago that maybe 1 out of 20 therapists is any good, and they haven't worked on themselves. They just went to college. They read some books. They didn't do much supervision, and it's unfortunate. And I think you're going to see more of that because it's exciting to be the one who's teaching people how to be successful. A lot of these people aren't successful themselves. They're teaching you how to be wealthy and they're not wealthy. They haven't done it, and so, I absolutely agree with you. You're going to see everything from charlatans to people who are they're well-intentioned, but they don't really have the thing to do it. And then, as you said, some are just money grabbing, and it's unfortunate. And if you're a good social media marketer, you can get a lot of followers.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean you're going to really be able to help them. That's unfortunate too.
Yeah.
And it hurts the field, because if you go there and you work with someone and it didn't work, and you go, well, that coaching stuff or that whatever, that doesn't work, that's not good for.
Exactly, Jai, because we know this works.
Right.
This works. And some people because they can run ads, they give you these tall promises and people pay a lot of money and things don't work. It hurts the industry.
Yeah.
And for people watching there, if you're a coach or just getting started, please work on yourself. It's a very sacred industry. Someone's life depends on you and you need to work on yourself and deliver on what you're promising.
No, it's true. It's true. Unfortunately, there are these online courses about how to use social media, how to enroll people, how to whatever. You get clients, but you don't help them. And then people give up, and then you've left somebody kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
It's irresponsible and not nice. And I think, and the other side is true too. There are a lot of good coaches that don't know how to market themselves.
Exactly.
So it's the combination. When we started our train the trainer program, I just wanted to train people to do what I did. And they got trained and they going, well, now what do I do? How do I find clients? So you have to do both. But even with my partner, Mark Victor Hansen, he was a really good salesperson and he would sell a course he hadn't even developed. Because he was really good. And then he would rustle around. He'd call me up and say, well, what should I do with him, So, but he learned well. He actually could do it. But so many people, I really agree with what you're saying. It's unfortunate.
So there's a hinted message. If you're a good coach, you need to learn the skill of marketing.
Yes.
Because best known will any day beat best. You need to be best known. You might be the best. If you're not known, it's not going to work for you.
Right.
A little while when we were speaking outside, you said something about ayahuasca.
Yes.
I think most people have no idea about it. Very few people have heard about it, have their own taboos about it. Can you explain to us what is ayahuasca?
Well, ayahuasca is a plant medicine that's been used by the shamans in South America for thousands of years. And I was introduced to it probably 10 years ago. I always wanted to go to the rainforest ever since, some of the movie stars and singers had gone to Brazil and seen the just always attracted to it. There's a woman who was taking people down there. And one of the things you did when you were there was do an ayahuasca ceremony in the middle of what seemed like prehistoric world. People running around in loincloths and chickens everywhere and nothing. It was quite fascinating. And I had an amazing experience. I had major breakthroughs from that one night in the rainforest. And then I found out that there was a clinic, resort, what should I call it, center in Costa Rica called Rhythmia, which does, every week they have 4 nights where you can do ayahuasca. And so I went and I did 4 nights and I had major breakthroughs. Just like with limiting beliefs disappeared. I could see things I was doing in my life that didn't work. I saw how to relate to people better. So what happens, it's a liquid. It's a brew of a leaf and a root and a vine rather. And they mix it together and they brew it all day long and then you drink it. And after about an hour, you have an experience. And some of it's kind of psychedelic. Some of it's psychotherapeutic. Sometimes there are healings that occur. I've had lower back pain go away. I had COVID. I did get it once, and during this journey, this big praying mantis lands on my chest, says, "Open your mouth." I'm lying there on this mattress. It sounds weird. I'm lying there on this mattress. I open my mouth, and then it says, "Wider." Like a dictator is saying, "Wider," it's like, okay. He sticks his head down in my lungs. He starts pulling out all this white powder and spitting it out. And then he does it in my other lung. And then the next day I had all that post-COVID breathing problems I had disappeared. I didn't have any more. And so people get cured of like cancer and things that occur. And I could name 20 movie stars I know that have gone down there. They don't necessarily want me to name them, because some people think they don't want to be associated with anything that's like psychedelic, if you will. But I've done 22 journeys with my wife. We go together, and
Where's this place? It's in Costa Rica?
Costa Rica,
Okay.
and I love it. I've never gone there and not had a major breakthroughs in my life. And all my friends, I was just at a conference, and I'd been to the same conference a year ago, and several people came up to me and said, "You're different. You're different." And it's true, I am. So there was one psychiatrist there who said that he came just to check it out to see if he should refer clients. And he said, one night of ayahuasca is worth 5 years of psychotherapy. Yeah, and that's a psychotherapist saying that, So I highly recommend it. It can be uncomfortable because sometimes you do purge physically because you're letting go of all these. We're carrying around guilt and shame and anger and feelings of worthlessness and unlovability, all those beliefs we talked about. And when you release that, often it comes out as throwing up or having diarrhea, whatever. And for some people, they're afraid of that. It just happens. Boom, you're done, But it's so, I think what's happening in the world, CERN, is that you've got accelerated techniques for healing now. And the plant medicine, and there's other plant medicines. People are doing a lot of mushrooms these days. Psilocybin, they're finding for PSTD for our military is one of the greatest ways to let go of that stress of seeing your brothers killed and all that kind of thing. And so the government's like lightening up. It used to be like they're trying to control all that, and they're now allowing research to occur. Some states like I think Oregon and Colorado have legalized a lot of this stuff. And even the governor of Texas, who is a conservative Republican, said, I've never seen anything be so effective to handle some of these psychological issues as these plant medicines. And And I think also, we're seeing things emerging. Do you know what EFT tapping is?
Yep.
That's something that's come out in the last 15 or 20 years. I have literally worked with people tapping on these acupuncture
Can you just
points.
explain for audience what is EFT so that they get to know what
So
it is?
EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it's a technique where you think of a limiting belief you have, or an emotion you have, or a trauma you have, and you want to eliminate it. And so you tap on it, and you tap on these 9 acupressure points. And as you do that, you're saying, you start by doing this. Even though I have this fear of heights, I totally and unconditionally love myself. And you do that 3 times. Then you say, this fear of heights, this fear of heights, this fear of heights, this fear of heights. And what happens is after about 5 rounds of that, I'd say 9 times out of 10, whatever it is disappears. I had a woman in a workshop show up a couple years ago, and it was in a big hotel that had a big Cinderella staircase going up to the ballroom. And she walked in and she panicked. And she said, if there's no elevator, I can't go to this workshop. She was phobic about walking up and downstairs. And so literally I said, come up to the stage. There was an elevator, so she was in the room. I said, come up to the stage. And we did the tapping thing. 3 minutes. And she walked up and down that Cinderella staircase on the, in the middle, no handles and all that stuff, And so I love that technique. I've watched people let go of amazing things. And so there's more and more of that stuff kind of coming forward all the time. But I think plant medicine is one, EFT tapping is another. There's other techniques like that are so fast. They call them rapid therapies.
Yeah. So as you rightly said, there's no one fit for all. You need to understand who you are, what is the limited beliefs, and figure out what works for you, whichever technique works for you. But work on yourself. And like you said earlier, personal growth is going forward until you're stuck. Again, work on yourself and go forward, go forward, go forward. I love that analogy which you put across. If you have to advise people who are watching this, and I'm going to break them into categories.
Okay.
If they're single people who have a problem in relationships, they're not able to find a partner, what would your advice be?
Suicide. No, I'm kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding. I think you have to address. We talked about limiting beliefs. There's something going on inside of you that's keeping you from being either available in a way. Like often it's people who've been hurt and they're protecting themselves. So when people come at you, it's like you're kind of like this, There's a wonderful book a friend of mine wrote called The Soulmate Secret. and where you have to let go of all your past hurt relationships to become available again. And so again, it's personal work. You've got to work on yourself. And one of the things I always say is you want to become the person you want to be in a relationship with. So if you want someone that's loving, you need to be loving. And that's the work, to do that, to heal the wounds from the past. In California, we have a statistic, 38% of all women were sexually molested by the age of 18. That's 4 out of every 10 women. So that's going to create some scars. And it creates some distrust. Can I trust you? You're a man, so forth. So if you don't heal those wounded patterns, you're going to be stuck. And even if you get in a relationship, you're not going to be fully vulnerable because of fear. So there's things like that are getting in the way, that either coaching, therapy, ayahuasca, whatever we talked about, need to happen. And this book, The Soulmate Secret, written by Ariel Ford comes to India quite a bit. She's actually turned me on to do you know about the Nada leaves where they read your life, So we're working on finding mine at the moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're in the state which is very famous for that.
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu is very, very famous for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someday I should take you and go there.
Okay.
We have some very good practitioners who can help you find that.
Yeah. Well, Deepak Chopra turned me on to that,
Yeah.
And it's a whole other story I won't go into, but he had an amazing experience with it. But anyway, the idea is that you've got to let go of some things you're holding on too much, or there's fear, or there's, for men, I think, especially, and women as well, if you're very controlling, we only try to control things we're afraid of. What do we control? Nuclear waste. We try to control fire. We try to control ammunition, guns. We control things we're afraid of. So if I'm trying to control you, it means I'm afraid of you at some level, right? And no one likes to be controlled. So if I'm controlling, bosses do that to their employees and spouses do that to each other. That doesn't work either. So there's a lot of things to look at, but mainly you need to get into a process either with a coach, a therapist, a trainer, a spiritual teacher, someone that can help you unpack those patterns and therefore become more available.
Okay. That's your advice for single people. As you rightly said, it's personal work. They need to work on themselves, understand
Absolutely.
what is the pattern, why is the pattern repeating. Maybe it's a deep trauma, some healing needs to be done or something needs to work.
Right.
It can be through a coach, through a therapy, through a course. And most people think it's learning. It's not learning, it's unlearning things which don't work.
That's
The
right.
key part, more
That's
than
right.
learning.
Yes, letting go.
Yeah, letting go.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is an interior decorator, and she says most of the houses she works with is taking things out of the space instead of putting more things in.
Yeah. So I think she's got it right.
Yeah.
Next, advice. Advice for business owners who are watching this podcast. What would your advice be?
For who?
For business owners,
Business
entrepreneurs.
owners. Well, we're going to start sound boring pretty soon because it's the same thing. It's like if you own a business, first of all, there's a science of business. There are things to know. I think L. Ron Hubbard wrote a book saying the 7 functions of a business. I don't remember them all, but there's administration, there's the
sales, marketing, accounts,
sales, all that stuff. So you need to learn that. Or hire people to fill each of those functions, if you can't do it yourself. Like I'm not an accounting type person. I never liked dealing with money. Yeah. So I have someone who does that for me. I can sell. It's not my favorite thing. So I have people to do that for me. But when I started, I had to do everything, right? And there are laws, there are rules. If you follow the rules, they work. So, study business and finance and investing and this is the other thing. We talk about coaching. Managers should be coaches. The best management used to be command and control because businesses way back when were mostly run by military. Ex-generals, they now run these big companies. And so if I tell you what to do, you do it. And don't question me, So now what we're finding is if you're a coach as a boss, a manager, those coaching skills, and I say this to everybody, if you're a parent or a manager or a boss, if you learn coaching skills, you're going to be much better at it. Because unfortunately, parents are still like trying to control their kids when they're like 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. It doesn't work. But if you can coach them, and there's some great coaching skills, then you're going to be much more effective. And I'd say the same thing for a business owner. And also, Be open to feedback. We talked about feedback.
Feedback.
It's very important to be asking your employees, your vendors, and your clients and customers the question we did on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the quality of this real estate transaction, this product I have, my store, our service, whatever it might be? And then anything less than a 10, what would it take to make it a 10? So be constantly in relationship with people.
Next advice is for people who are already couples who want to take their life to the next level, better relationship. What advice would you give for couples, married couples or anybody in a relationship?
I would say, again, relationships are a field of study. People know a lot about how to have great relationships. So read some books, Better from Mars, Women from Venus. That book transformed how I relate to my wife, because I was always the problem solver. Women don't want you to solve their problem. They want you to listen. They want to figure it out themselves. I did not know that, and so I learned that from John's book. And there's a number of great couples therapists, if you will, who've written books. One, I was just at a convention a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy there who'd written a couples book, and he taught us several things. One was, I mentioned earlier, the appreciation journal, where we write in each other's journal what we appreciate. There's some famous couples therapists whose names I haven't memorized yet, but they said they watched 2,000 hours of couples interacting. And after that, they said, we can watch a couple interact now, and in 15 minutes, we can tell if their relationship's going to be a wonderful one or if it's not going to work. And if there's any judgment going on between two people, criticism, doesn't work. If they appreciate each other and love each other and acknowledge each other, they're going to stay together. So appreciation is really, really important. And there's a woman named Esther Perel who wrote a book called Mating in Captivity. She's a couples therapist, worked with thousands of couples in New York. And I've not memorized her work. I saw her speak about 3 weeks ago. And she talked about this couple who were fighting over the kitty litter. You were supposed to take the kitty litter out, and you didn't do it. And they were like, bah. She said, it's never about the kitty litter. It's about, you don't respect me. You don't appreciate me. And there's a third one I haven't remembered at the moment, but there's all fights are between three things. It says unconscious thing. I'm not lovable. You don't respect me. I'm not worthy of the respect, So I would say, read a couple books. For me, listening is really important. I ask my wife that question every Sunday on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the quality of our relationship? And so she knows she can give me feedback. And
so you ask that question every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10 over the past week. So, yeah, I'll ask her tomorrow by phone. It's like, and it's funny, I usually get 9s now, 10 sometimes, and a little tiny thing, you left your dishes in the sink again, things like that. I appreciate you didn't do. See, the problem is we don't know what they're upset about quite often. They're, they just get mad. They're not talking to you, whatever. Yeah. And I think learning how to fight fair is really important. Learning how to listen, obviously. Most couples don't listen. They just argue with each other. Mm. And just being able to say, as I understand it, what you just said was blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Most people never learn that skill. They're not teaching that in school, at least not in the United States.
Same here.
Yeah. It's like, and you think about it. I was a history teacher in high school for a couple of years. I taught history. And I don't know one couple that ever got divorced because they didn't memorize the 5 causes of the Civil War. But they all got divorced because they didn't know how to communicate. They didn't appreciate each other. They didn't know how to. And I would say also, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages by, what's his name? Gary somebody. But the 5 love languages, and there's 5 love languages: quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, nurturing touch, and gifts. And this I learned from them. My wife's love language is quality time. Mine's nurturing touch. So I want hugs. I want nurturing, massages, sex, whatever. She wants me to listen to her. Yeah. So I was giving her shoulder massage. She didn't care about that. Yeah. So I'm speaking my language to her. It's like speaking French to a Japanese person. She's not feeling loved. Yeah. So once we got that clear, and then my daughter has a different love language, my sons have different love languages, I can relate to them differently. That's critical too. Yeah. That's a
Very,
really
very critical. The five language, I think,
Gary
if you
Chapman.
can really understand that,
Yeah.
and if you know that works, it's very easy. Because I think John Graham met him in 2013 when we brought him to India. He said something very simple. Suryan, the problem with the world is they take a circle and they want to fit it in a square. She's a circle.
Yeah.
You can't fit it in a square.
Yeah.
Just understand she's a circle. It
That's
starts
right.
with that. And you need to understand women work differently, men work differently. As simple
Truly.
as that.
Truly.
Like women is coming and telling a problem. She doesn't want a solution. She just wants you to hear. Do not give a solution.
Right.
That was the first thing he said. Do not open your mouth.
Yeah.
Just listen.
Yeah. No, it was so hard for me to learn that. I mean, I do know it now. And I also learned that listening while you're looking at TV doesn't work either.
Yeah.
Honey, I heard you. I can repeat back everything you said. That makes it even matter,
Yeah.
right? She wants eye contact. And occasionally for me to go, oh, I understand how that would feel, like, so she knows I'm really listening.
Yeah.
She'll often say to me, my girlfriends listen better than you because they respond. Oh, God, that must have been terrible, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think communication skills, really important. There's books out there like How to Have Crucial Conversations, So again, I'm a believer in studying what you want to be good at. And most of us don't study how to be better parents. We don't study how to be better spouses. We don't study how to be a better boss, So all of that. And there's so much available now. You can go online. There's probably 10 TED Talks on anything you ever wanted to know, let alone, courses and online things you can learn. And many of them are free and some of them cost money. It's worth the investment.
Yeah. Any area of your life you want to improve, whether it's health, wealth, or relationship, if they're open to learning, they're looking out for the information. There are coaches, there are courses, there are stuff which they can really take and start trying it. And as you said, there's no one fit for all. You need to understand who you are, what it is, and start working on yourself.
Right.
And the magic happens. Because even in relationships, when you take that extra step, listen to her for once, actually listen to her.
Right.
And she knows that you're listening, she's going to take that extra step. And that's how relationship work.
Yeah.
And I think relationship is everyday work.
Yeah.
You can't just sit idle for 10 days and say, okay, it's happening now. It's
Well,
every day.
And for the women, they also need to know what the man needs.
Yeah.
Like one of the things John, he gave an example once that men like to know that they actually contributed something valuable. So he takes his wife to the movie and the wife says, I love the movie. He goes, I took you to the movie. I picked the movie. That was a win, And so it's like it goes both ways. We're both men, so we're thinking about what women need. And the other thing I learned is there's a theory, what's it called? A field of study called the Enneagram. And basically there's 9 personality types. And I'm a 3, which is a high achiever. And my wife's a 4, which is empathic, compassionate, listener, all that. And feeling everything. So this showed up in our cabinet where we keep our coffee and our coffee cups. So Starbucks for a while they were selling these cups that had the name of the country you're in, like India or Abu Dhabi or, Dubai or whatever. So anywhere I'd go, I'd bring one back. And it was like a little trophy. I did that. So now we had like about 12 of those and she hates them. She wants these things that are very like ceramic by the potter that were made locally and everything else. Because she's a 4 and she's into the quality of the feeling of it. I was like a 3 wanting to prove that I had done all that good stuff. To me, I'm achieving,
Yeah.
So we had to make a compromise.
Do you have different cabinets or the same cabinet?
We half and half.
Yeah. But as you said, Jack, if you can really work on it, I think relationships are beautiful. We're designed to evolve and live with other people. That's my personal belief.
Oh, no, we're meant to be in relationship. In fact, people that have good relationships live longer. If they have a heart attack, they recover faster. There's tons of research on that. One of the biggest challenges in America right now is loneliness because so many people are online and people aren't getting together in person. A lot of people are just really lonely and you have to learn how to reach out. Again, go back to 100% responsibility. Don't complain that you're lonely. Figure out how can I get into a relationship with other people? Join a club, join a meeting up group, whatever, go to church, do something to get yourself out there. But, you probably know this research. When they talk to people who are on their deathbed, they never, ever, ever say, I wish I'd worked harder. I wish I'd made more money. They always say, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids. I wish I'd spent more time with my friends.
Yeah. 5 things you say when you die. Things like, I would rather spend time with my friends, see the world, stuff like that. Nobody says no money. And I think you brought a topic called loneliness, which is a very critical topic, and we need to talk about it. It's happening in India also. Today, money is not a problem, because back then when I was a kid, like even 3 square meals was a problem for most families out there. Today, that is taken care of. Everybody's got 3 square meals. Technology is there. All the basics are covered. But people are very lonely.
Yeah.
Can you tell your thought on it? Why? And what can be done? If you're actually feeling lonely, what you should do?
Well, I think if you're feeling lonely, again, the responsibility is on you to get yourself out of that situation. And number one, you need to tell people, talk to people, and make a request. You know, one of the things that most people don't do is they're afraid of asking for what they want in relationship because they're afraid they're going to get rejected. And you have to be willing to put yourself. You know, someone, I think a minister once said, if you want to bag an elk, you got to go hunting where elk live. You can't get them in Africa. You know, they grow in northern Canada or something. So the idea is you have to go where people are. And that means getting out of your shell and going to some place. You know, it could be a yoga retreat. It could be a meditation retreat. It could be a conference. It could be a association meeting. It could be to, you know, I mean, one of the things that I love that I learned that comes from India is called laughter yoga.
Yeah.
And I have a friend of mine who teaches it in my seminars sometimes. And, you know, they're out there. There are people doing Tai Chi every morning in the park. You know, go join something where people are. Join the gym, you know, go to the spa. You know, get yourself out where people are. And let your friends and relatives know, I'm lonely. You know, would you be willing to have lunch with me? Would you be willing to go to the movie with me? Would you be willing to come over and play Monopoly with me? Whatever. Because most people, when they're alone, just sit around being lonely, and it doesn't get you what you want. You have to reach out. And I think if you're compassionate, think about your mother, you think about your sister, think about people you know. If they're lonely, you also could be one that reaches out. You know, be caring enough to do that. And I think people are afraid they're going to get trapped.
Yep.
You know, and you can make a commitment. You know, I'm willing to have dinner with you once every 2 weeks, you know, every Wednesday or something. But then they know they can count on that. And you know you're not going to get trapped.
So if you're watching, if you're lonely, it's time you really, really talk to people and tell you're lonely.
Yeah.
And start working on it, because what can happen if you're going to be there, you're going to go down spiral. You're going to do stuff which is going to hurt you more. And it's going to go so down, it's going to be difficult to come back. Now is the time you actually go and talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you're aware of it. And it is true that loneliness can actually turn into depression, can turn into, like, you know, suicidal thoughts, the whole thing. You don't want that to happen.
Yep. We have a tradition in Greater Than Podcast, Jack. We call it 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Okay, 3. 3 books you would recommend.
This will sound self-serving, but I would recommend the Success Principles, because I do think it's the result of like 30 years of research and 2 years of writing, and it's everything I know about having success in your life. I would... you know, I would probably say The Secret. I think that's a profoundly powerful book. And then I would say, I've read 3,000 books, so it's really hard to pick one. It's kind of like, who's your favorite child? You know, if I say him, he's going to be upset, you know. But I think I would say some book on meditation. You know, there are a number of them out there. I remember being in graduate school and reading a book called Yoga by Richard Hittleman. It was a paperback book. And I was in this little tiny apartment, and every night I would sit there and do one of the exercises. And I learned yoga from a book, you know. So I would say anything you're interested in, just go to Amazon and type in what you're interested in. Go to Google and say, what's the best book on so-and-so? You know, so we talked about couples relationships, about business, but I think those would be the 2 books in an area.
Yes, Success Principles, The Secret, and whatever you are interested, go find a book on it.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
Okay, 2 things. 2 beliefs which work for you.
Everything that's happening in the universe is for me, not against me. And I can handle anything that shows up in my life.
Wow. And number one, if it was only one mentor you want to thank, who's that one person? Only one person.
I'd probably say W. Clement Stone, who was one we talked about, my introduced me to all the affirmations and visualization and goal setting and excuse me, and how to burp online. No, but he was an amazing being. And I'll just share one thing that he said to me. It was so cool. I was a Democrat, liberal. He was a very conservative, wealthy guy. And I once said, why did you hire me to work for your foundation? And he said, well, here's you're this circle and I'm this circle, but we overlap that little part. We both want to change education and help kids. And so let's not argue about politics, economics, world affairs. Let's just both focus on the one thing we care about. That was so dramatically powerful for me that we waste so much time disagreeing with people and not focusing on what we could do together for our mutual interests. So he was a great mentor. And then I worked in his foundation for a couple of years, and it was life-changing.
So it's Clement Stone. Okay, Jack, I just want to say a big thank you. I'll tell you why. I met you first time in 2013, and then you came for a 4-city tour in 2019. We just did a big one in Mumbai, now 3,000 plus people. Your work has inspired millions and millions of people out there, especially in India also. As you said, a couple of the coaches I work very closely are your students. So I think your legacy is your students who are doing your work. And one of my mentors told me this, that 2 times you die. The first time when your body hits the ground, and second time when no one talks about you.
That's good.
And that was so profound.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because your work is going to be there for eternity. So big thank you for being who you are. And what I love about you is your sense of humor. You still have that 16-year-old kid right inside you, always up.
It's true.
Playing mischievous, right? Yeah, So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for the work you do. It's always a honor and privilege to have this conversation. And I'm looking forward for one more such conversation whenever it's going to happen. Thank you so much, Jack. Any last words before we let you go?
I love you. And I would just say to everyone out there, you have everything you need to do anything that shows up as a dream. You are not able to have a dream if you don't have the capacity to make it come true. So if you're dreaming it, you can do it. Now, you may have to learn some new skills. You may have to partner up with some people. You may need to go back to school. You may need to get some certification you don't have. But if you are dreaming it, you have the ability to do it. Don't let your dream die inside of you. Trust that you're going to make it happen. And when you do that, not only will you be better, you're going to inspire everyone around you to be better. There's a ripple effect that goes out. Don't ever think that taking care of yourself is selfish. It's actually a gift to everyone else in the world.
Thank you so much, Jack, for this amazing, amazing conversation.
Thank you for staying till the end. This podcast is about helping you shift perspectives, push your limits, and take steps that actually move you forward. Just remember that you're greater than anything life throws at you. I am Surendran Jaishekhar signing off. Love yourself. Don't take life too seriously. Live a life of meaning and purpose.